Morning to you all. On behalf of the family of General Rodrigues, my heartfelt gratitude to General and Mrs. Pandey, to DGRT, General Atosh, General Rajeshwar, all our retired chiefs, Air Marshal Sisuri, friends, distinguished officers, young officers with your careers ahead of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the honor you have done to my father in conceptualizing this remarkable initiative and bringing it to fruition. We've heard about my father's military career and friendships from those who knew him well and worked closely with him. So let me give you some glimpses of Dad, the father, the grandfather. At the age of 15, Dad read the NDA motto, service before self. Then, at the IMA, he read the Chetwood motto, the safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command come next. Your own ease, comfort, and safety come last, always and every time. He then wholeheartedly dedicated his life to these glorious values. But there's no mention of family in these army mores. Dad and we had to work very hard to make family time and to value every precious moment because our father was often posted to border areas or to non-family stations, sometimes at very short notice, as I'm sure everyone is aware of. But he ensured that the times we had together were fulfilling and were interesting. At home, Dad's 4G habits ensured early morning runs and strenuous exercise for the children. And fortunately, as is apparent, despite my best intentions, I don't do that quite as much often anymore. But what an amazing foundation it was. Sports were always a big part of our family, particularly team sports where everyone participated. And Dad loved tennis. He took up badminton in later years and was very enthusiastic and competitive, ensuring that we played hard but fair and enjoyed what we were doing. As young children, he taught Susie, Mark, and myself to swim, to shoot an air gun, and to fish. A particularly valuable skill he tried to pass on was his ability to debate and his talent for extemporaneous public speaking, which is why this is such a wonderful initiative. In his free time, Dad always had a book in his hand, whether it was fiction, biographies, military tomes, history, he read them all. He was a voracious reader with a formidable memory, very, very awe-inspiring for us, and something I wish he'd passed on to me, but anyway. He instilled a lifelong love of books and fondness for reading in all of us. We did have some basic rules to stick to, though. We had to be polite and respectful to everyone, whether it was GOC uncle and auntie, or the bhaiya driving Dad's jonga, or the housekeeper helping Ma look after us. No exceptions. And with no Zomato or Twiggy, with those days, of course, everyone had a role to play. Other 4G type rules included not complaining and not giving up. Whether it was sport or maths problems, or a family game or a school quiz or a race or a debate, you had to try. You couldn't say someone else was stronger or faster or cleverer. You did the best that you could. That was usually good enough for Dad. But you couldn't give up or opt out. That trying was and is important. In this context, I'm going to embarrass him, Dr. Rajiv Gupta was a young doctor who's was with Dad when he was GOC 2nd Division in Leh. They were playing a game of tennis, and Dad realized that Dr. Gupta wasn't playing properly. He was a bit nervous, so he said, "Play your game, man, don't hold back," in true Dad fashion. Dad did that. Rajiv responded, and his very next shot, delivered with full power, hit Dad in the solar plexus and doubled him over with pain. Dr. Rajiv is here today, and I'm sure he will testify to the fact that Dad didn't hold a grudge to this day. But as you also heard, Dad was a boxer. Now, when he told us one of the reasons for this was when he joined the first JSW, aged 15 plus, he was told by his commandant in his first year that unless he grew 2 inches, he would have to leave. I think you've got the rules the other way around now. You have to be a certain height before you can join. But anyway, fortunately for Dad, his small stature meant he was also called Little Roddy, and he got ragged more than others. His answer to this was to join the boxing squad. At a major boxing event, just one of the events the issues that we remember about Dad, there was a major boxing event at the academy. After fighting a few rounds, the referee called a halt and asked why Dad was fighting with one hand. He said, well, I actually broke my hand in the second round, but I decided to carry on fighting. They called a halt to the contest, and both Dad and his opponent, the late, great Colonel Bull Kamar, were awarded their boxing blues for that. And Dad said that Bull was the toughest man in the Indian Army. And I'll leave you to make your own conclusions about what that made Dad. As youngsters, we always saw Dad as this strong and disciplined person, always didn't tolerate idle conversations, random dreaming or drifting. And I'm not quite sure what he'd make of Facebook or TikTok, but that's the modern generation. We saw a very different person when his grandchildren came along. He was patient, he was tolerant, he was indulgent. He always had time to chatter, to gossip, to share stories, secrets, problems, dreams. We, as his children, saw him as a true guardian and a wise guide for the next generation. And it was inspiring for us to see firsthand that one can keep evolving and staying valuable and relevant to those around you. From a personal standpoint, you've heard so many of the initiatives that Dad did, whether it was making it possible for women to join the serving forces of the armed forces, revamping and creating adequate insurance plan for serving and retired officers, the support network for Army personnel with special needs via the Asha schools, permanent homes for slum dwellers, a 1,000-bed shelter for sleep children in Chandigarh, helping Veer Naris get their just due support and protection by the schemes, and for planning and ensuring that the Indian armed forces participated in the peacekeeping forces, which helped to enhance the international image of India and the Indian armed forces. And I will say, Dad was very, very proud of how the army had evolved, how the military had evolved, the technology, the indigenization, I'll get it right. And he would be very proud of where it is right now. So much so, if I had the same opportunities back in 1980 when I was looking for a career, the army would have come first, I think. Whether I would have made it or not is a different matter because the standards are so high. But being the son of a gunner, I also wasn't quite sure whether I'd go for the Dhanush or the Vajra, or I'd go possibly up in the sky with the Rudra or the Apaches. But that is a story for another time. But there's so many projects and so many initiatives, all done in partnership with Mum, who was Dad's soulmate, strong right arm, and soft, generous heart. He had faults. Of course he did have faults. You've heard him. He wasn't a diplomat. He was a straight talker. But he was a straight talker who told it like it was, and there was nothing malicious about it. These qualities made him human, with flaws from which one could learn hard, difficult, but invaluable lessons. My father, General Sunit Francis Rodrigues, has left an enduring legacy of honor and integrity. He showed us to think outside the box, to imagine hitherto unimaginable things, and most importantly, to take steps to make them happen. He showed us how it was possible to change oneself and evolve by his own example, always working towards becoming a better version of yourself and being of value to those around you. That was what was important. As a person, as a father, and a grandfather, and a soldier, he was dearly loved, deeply respected, and will always be missed. I end simply as he would. Put India first. I answer to God and my country. and there is no limit to what can be achieved, as long as you don't mind who gets the credit for it. God bless all of you, and Jai Hind.